What's up, public speaking students? It is Monday, March 23rd, 2020, and I am going to, in this lesson today, we're going to get into the slideshows, but I have some general announcements that I need to make first. First of all, it's important that even before you continue to watch this video, you watch the short video that I made regarding general announcements for both my public speaking class, this class, and my AP language class. I posted a video, it'll be posted before I post this one, where I go over the office hours that I'm going to be establishing in order to make myself as accessible and available to you as possible through video conferencing. So please watch that before you continue even on with this video. Also, just general announcements for the public speaking class. I'm going to eventually be setting up playlists on my YouTube channel so that it's easy for you to kind of go through. Right now, the way it's set up is I have my AP language lessons mixed in with my public speaking lessons, and you could read the title to figure out whether it applies to your class or not, right? I try to make that as clear as possible, but it should also be easy if I just create a playlist so that you could go from one video to the next, and it's divided by my two courses. As of now, right now, you should have submitted your planning sheet, the informative speech planning and preparation sheet through Google Classroom. I'm going to be going through those over the next couple of days and providing you feedback if it's necessary. If you don't hear from me, then that means you're probably good to go, so start outlining. But I can provide you feedback even if you want it. If you don't hear from me, you just shoot me a text through Remind and I could get back to you that way. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure how I'm providing feedback. I'm trying to do things that take the least amount of time so I can get as much done as possible. For some documents, I've been trying out like typing in comments on the documents. I don't know how visible or easy it is for you to access those comments. For a few students, I have been I would keep the planning sheet on my computer or on my phone, and I'd be creating a audio file, and then I would quickly mail you that audio file to give you feedback. That seems to be working well, so I might continue trying that, but again, we're all trying things out here, so we'll see. But for those of you who submitted, even if you submitted late, okay, thank you for submitting. As of now, also, you should have started the outlining process. If you haven't done so, please watch my previous video that goes through outlining my guidelines, my requirements, the do's and don'ts. I give a couple of examples I give an example of a good one. I give an example of one that needs improvement. So please make sure you do that before you actually get into the outlining, typing up stage. It's important that you're doing it the right way. As I said before, it's simply an exercise in following directions. Follow directions. All right, so also while you're doing that outline, you want to be thinking about the slideshow. What in my outline will correspond with my slideshow? What visual elements will I have? How many slides will I have? So we'll be talking more about that today. And specifically, we're going to be getting in the do's and the don'ts of slideshows. I'm going to show you some examples of student slideshows. And we're also going to be talking about the fatal flaws that you can have in a slideshow. Things that you definitely want to avoid at all costs. So that's what we'll be doing today. If you have any questions, I wish I could answer them through a YouTube video. That's not possible. Write your questions down anyway, and still, you never know, I might answer them later on in the video. But yeah, let's get to it. So today, we will be talking about our slideshow. As I said before, we will be going over the do's and don'ts, and in general, how to make an effective slideshow. I'll also be talking about the due date for the informative speech outline. You should have that almost done, and just ready to submit, but I'll give you a formal due date towards the end of the video. And we'll also be talking about an upcoming assignment where you will be evaluating sample student speeches that are on YouTube, and you'll have to do a little write-up for some of those. So before we get into the nitty-gritty details of the slideshow, there are just a few basic things that we want to keep in mind. And these are kind of like guiding principles. So it doesn't matter what your topic is or what type of slideshow you're doing. In general, we all want to keep in mind that less is more. We'll be talking more about that, but simplicity is key when it comes to the slideshows. So keep it simple. Less is more, keep it simple, and you want to keep it visually clean and as professional as possible. We'll be talking more about things like animations and what you can do with images and how many words you should have per slide. But those are the three guiding basic principles. Less is more, keep it simple, and keep it visually clean. As far as slideshows go, I'm using that term slideshow as a general name for what you might more specifically call a PowerPoint, right? PowerPoint is Microsoft. You might not use PowerPoint. You might use Google Slides. That's totally fine too. You also might use Prezi. I have a lot of students who like using Prezi, and it works. But there might be some drawbacks to it, and we'll get to those also. Prezi is really unique in the way that it handles its information and has animations, and we're going to have to talk more about how often you should be using animations. In some hands, they're visually appealing, but on the other hand, they could also be distracting. So when we actually get into the more finer details of the slideshow, we will be talking more about things like animations, even GIFs and videos that you might want to embed or you might not want to embed into your slideshows. So let's get into it. One of the things that I'm going to find interesting is it's going to be clear to me who has watched this video and watched it carefully when we see your slideshows. So I hope some of the things that I say to not do when it comes to slideshows, you don't do when you're giving your speech. This is, you watching? Paying attention? You learning? That's why I'm doing these videos. So before I show you actual examples, let's just go over a few, I would say, guidelines, or you could think of them as requirements, but I consider them best practices. First of all, you definitely want to minimize the number of words on each slide, and I'll talk more about that. But for the most part, they say like a general rule is that if you have more than 12 words on a slide, it's almost pointless because humans, while we are extremely visual creatures, we're also extremely lazy creatures. And when we're looking at a slide that is just a wall of text, right, like a paragraph, I would say that there is a 90% chance that absolutely nobody is going to read it. Now, if you have a few words, right, you have a title and you have a few bullet points underneath that, that's different, right? You have about 10 words on a slide. Then it's going to be manageable by your audience. We're not going to feel overburdened. I have seen time and time again that simply because students have too many words on a slide, that the slide just becomes pointless. So avoid having a slide that is too text-rich or too text-heavy. What else? Font types, font sizes. Again, professionalism is the goal, but so is legibility. We want to be able to read your slides from far away, or we want to just be able to read them in general. And if we're choosing fonts that are too flowery or bubbly or too much like a script or something like Wingdings. Is that font around anymore? We can't read it, right? We can't read it. So none of this chiller font or stuff that, makes us struggle to decipher what exactly it says. We want to keep it simple. I'm talking Times New Roman. I'm talking maybe Cambria, right? As clean as possible. Now, this is a big one. There have been times where students have wonderful slides and they look fine on their computer when they're making them, but when they go up and put them on a whiteboard, right, or a smartboard, we can't read them at all simply because of the colors that were chosen. How on earth do you expect us to read the text on your slide if it's yellow text on a white background? Come on. think about things in terms of contrast, right? So use a black background with white text, or you're going to have, dark blue text on a white background, right? But none of this yellow background with white text. I can't read that. I don't want to see a dark blue text with a black background. I can't read that. So think in terms of contrast. There's nothing worse than when you have something important for us to read on your slideshow, but we can't read it simply because of the text colors that you've selected. And how the text colors interplay with the background that you've selected. Images. We'll be talking more about images. I think that they are extremely important when it comes to slideshows, PowerPoints, Prezis, and just in general when it comes to speaking in public, right? They say that a picture is worth how many? 5, 10? A lot of words. I think it's 1,000, right? And I believe that. And there's nothing better than when you're trying to inform us and then you find the perfect picture that just completely illustrates what we're talking about. However, I have seen some students overload their slides with too many images and we don't know which one to look at, or one is distracting and the other is too small and we can't see it. So we're going to be talking about sizing your images and sizing them in a way that is, first of all, that is actually correct. There have been students who size their images in an incorrect way, and we want to just talk about in general size so that everybody can see it. Of course, I'm approaching this as if you're giving speeches to an audience in a room or an auditorium. And videos. We'll be talking about videos. Some students will be using videos for their informative speeches. I highly encourage you to. Remember, I give you up to about 1 minute and 30 seconds of videos. You can either split that up, right? 10 seconds for a grabber. We're going to have 30 seconds later on in the middle of the speech to illustrate something, and maybe we'll have a few seconds towards the end as a close. Yeah, it's up to you how you decide to use the videos. You might just want to, in the middle of your speech, show us 1.5 minutes of a video, maybe pausing it strategically to explain things. That could be helpful. But videos are definitely usable. Now, the question is, what kind of skills do you have when it comes to creating PowerPoints and slideshows and Prezis? I have seen students do some awesome things where they are able to embed videos into their slideshows. And if you can do that, that's something to keep in mind. However, there are some drawbacks to that, and we'll talk about that also. What about GIFs, right? It's meme culture nowadays, and GIFs are an important part of that, and sometimes we want to use a GIF. I will advise, for the most part, against it. When you have one single 5-second video playing on a loop behind you, it becomes a major distraction, right? So I say, for the most part, you want to avoid GIFs. However, I could see their role in perhaps illustrating how to do something. But you don't want that slide to be playing on a continual loop behind you, because now that thing is just, even if we don't want to look at it, because there's somebody who's showing us how to do something and it just keeps happening like that, and it just keeps happening like that. We want to look at you, right? But we can't, because this thing in the back is just keep happening like that. So, and again, we want to make sure that our slideshows are as professional as possible. How about we take a look at some examples of slideshows that might not be that professional and that are. I'm going to be attaching a document to my Google Classroom that kind of goes over some of these pointers, right? They talk about the proper use of color, using limited words. We'll talk about that. Using visuals only if it has relevance to what you're presenting, and using animations. Again, they're all going to follow the same general principle of keeping it simple, right? For example, this says, as a rule, and I just found this on the internet, keep your bullet points no more than 5 per slide and no more than 4 to 5 words per bullet point. I think that's a good general rule to follow. It says don't write full sentences to your bullet points. Use short phrases. I agree with that. All right. And as I said, it's hard to read yellow text on a white background. It's just as hard to read dark blue text on a black background. So instead, consider a dark blue text on a white background. or vice versa. I'm also going to be including this document here, which kind of just gives you, an idea of how to plan things out. Maybe before you start creating your slideshow, you should consider this, okay? What visual aids do you plan to use for your speech? That does not just mean a PowerPoint. You might want to bring things in or show us, like literally have it. If you want to teach us, for example, what the different types of pens are, I'll keep going back to that example, bring some of those in, right? We might even get a chance to see what it's like to write with them. What purpose will your visual aids serve your audience? What will they contribute? How will you incorporate visual aids into your speech? In other words, which parts of your speech will entail your visual aids? You're going to use them for your grabber, your main points, your conclusion. Explain that. How are you going to interact with your visuals? It's not enough to simply show your audience something. What will you point out about the visuals? I want to see that you are interacting, pointing to things on your slideshow. And have you done a Google image search? If not, what are you waiting for? Let's go. Before I get into the specific examples, the do's and don'ts, I'm going to use those specific examples for do's and don'ts. I first want to talk about a mistake that I see all the time. And it's students who undermine their grabber, their attention getter. And there's usually two ways that students will undermine their grabber. And please, don't undermine your grabber. Never underestimate the power of your grabber, right? So I happen to be somebody who believes in the power of suspense. And when you come up, when you're going to give your speech, there might be 2 students, if that many, in the class who know what you're talking about. And I do that intentionally because I want there to be this moment where, all right, there you are, and the audience is ready to hear you speak, and they start thinking, what is this? What is he going to talk? What is she going to talk about? What's the speech going to be about, right? That's important. When you have a teacher and you enjoy their lessons, sometimes you come in, you wonder, what are we doing today? And that's kind of the same type of idea that we have here. So don't undermine your grabber. And here's how students will undermine their grabber. First, I'll call them up to the podium, or I'll say, okay, it's your turn. And they come up, and because they're a little anxious, because they're a little nervous, the first thing they say is, hi, I'm Adam Bowman, and I'm going to talk to you today about different types of pens. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Allow the grabber to do its work. So instead, I'll call you up, and you'll come up and you'll say, there's something that we as students should never leave the house without. There's something that, if you had to take a test, you'd fail without it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yes, you do. In fact, you all have them on your desks, and some of you have them on your hands. In your hands. Today we're going to be talking about pens, right? That was a lame grabber. It was lame, but at least I didn't undermine it. There's another way that I notice that students will often undermine their grabber, and it's through their slideshow. They will have a slide already up on the board before they've even started talking, and that slide is a title slide, and it gives the whole speech topic away. Don't do it. If you need to make your first title slide, if you need to make your first slide black in order to help you, to help ensure that you don't do that, then make your first slide black and do your grabber, right? Sometimes students will have a title slide before they have their grabber slide. Sometimes students just order their slideshow the wrong way. I'll give you an example. Let's say I wanted to show you something, right? But my first slide says types of vegetables. Today we're going to be talking about types of vegetables. That's what the first slide shows. Well, you just ruined the grabber. What if my first slide has, something like, I'll be right there, an image of something just beautiful like this, right? All of these vegetables, and it's just vegetables, right? And we see the image of the vegetables and we're thinking, vegetables, vegetables. And then you give us, right, that image is the grabber. And you say something like, what do you think of when you see this? And students say, healthy, food, vegetables, whatever. Good, now they're interacting. This is like the grabber's doing its job, okay? Long story short, don't undermine your grabber by either telling us what you're talking about or by giving us a slide that tells us what you're going to talk about. Let's now look at some slideshows. So here we are looking at a slideshow from a past student speech. Now we are in the edit mode of Google Slides. Let me go to the present mode. Right, there I am. All right, let me move this back a little bit, and hopefully this will make some things clear. I'm gonna move this back a little bit more. All right, let me work on a better angle here. Okay, so this student, first of all, he had this up before he came to the podium. It was all ready to go. And as I said, because this was there for all of us to see, it already undermined his grabber. He was going to do some sort of an interesting grabber where he talked about, imagine you're on the football field and then all of a sudden you get tackled and your head is ringing and blah, 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 right? And there was no real point in doing that because the grabber is there to grab our attention. So he's got this, this illustration, I guess, here of what happens during a concussion, right? With the head jerking back and the brain slamming into the back of the skull here. But just a few things to look at. First of all, as far as colors go, he did not make a good choice when it came to by his name here. I don't even know if you could read this, but right over here, it actually has the word by, and then it has his name here. But we can hardly read this. And trust me, if you are at the back of the room, we will not even know that it says your name here. I'm not even crazy about the green on this type of a slide. Considering there's all this white space up here, why not just put that word concussion there? Or take this image and shrink it down a little bit and have the word not concussion, concussions, right? I'm not. It's all right. It's not that great. Okay, so his first slide says, what is a concussion? A concussion is a traumatic brain injury that alters the way your brain functions. Now, do you notice anything wrong with this slide? I mean, I do. This is what in art class they will say, poor usage of space, right? Why is all of this white space here? I don't know, right? And truthfully, the font it looks like this was just copy and pasted into the slideshow. I mean, I don't mind the template here or whatever the design elements, but, and I'm afraid that this is actually going to be too small to read if you're in the back of the room. So lots of white space here. Font hasn't been, adjusted. And if this was just copied and pasted, let's have a source. All right, here is an example of a problem when it comes to image sizing. I'm going to bet money. I don't know for sure, but I'm going to bet money that he's got this political cartoon here, right? When he pasted this in, first of all, look at how it's overlapping over here. Oops. Oh, no. When he pasted this in, he didn't consider the background when it came to sizing the image. So we've got this overlap here. Not only that, I think he resized this by simply just dragging the side. That's not how you resize an image. It distorts the image. When you want to resize an image in order to maintain, the proportions of the image, you need to drag from a corner. Okay, and be aware also, sometimes resolution issues, you will paste it into the slideshow, but then, you've resized it so much that it ends up all pixely and blurry. You don't want that to happen. All right, let's see. CDC estimates that almost 1.6 to 3.8 million concussions occur each year. Okay, good. He's got a source there. I like that. Almost 78% of concussion occur during games as opposed to practices, mainly because players are designed to go hard when the cameras and big lights are out. Big lights are out? It's I don't like it. The wording. It's not, yeah, it needs some serious improvement there. The big lights are out, right? Almost 78% of concussion occur. There are mistakes here, and this is what we're all looking at. Also, if I remember correctly, he had this political cartoon. He didn't even mention it. Didn't even refer to it. So what's the point? To distract us? Let's not do that. If you're going to have a visual like that, hopefully you're going to be interacting with it. Here we see a political cartoon where the NFL guy who's an owner sees this guy's brain falling out, and he's like, what's the problem? Okay, and now we've just became a persuasive speech, potentially. All right, symptoms. Okay, it's clean. The font size is good, but notice the inconsistency between these slides here. What's up with that? Like, you know, and that looks like it's Arial. This is the standard font, right? I don't know. Why not make it Times New Roman or Cambria or something just that is as professional as possible? However, all right, so I do like the fact that he's got, well, he says symptoms, and he's got one bullet. You know, maybe, I don't know. Maybe you don't need that bullet if this is all that you're going to have here. The bullet implies a list of items. Okay, he's got two symptoms. All right, this is lacking organization here. I don't know if this is supposed to be part of the other slide that's coming up or what. Or maybe it's like an intro to it. That's fine, I guess. Okay, common symptoms, all right? Confusion, neck pain, mood changes, blurred vision, migraines or headaches, slowness in thinking, acting, or speaking. I like it. I like it. I would want a comma after the acting, though. But that's just me. That's the Oxford comma, and I prefer it. But this is not bad. So far, this is the best slide. I'm not crazy about the font, but whatever. Oh, yeah. Okay, common danger signs for adults and children. For adults and children. Both of them? Huh. Maybe you should just say people. Or how about just common danger signs? Remember, less is more. You can make an argument that some people in the audience might not even read all of these because there's too much text. Although I think that this is totally manageable. Weird spacing issues here. Do you see this? What's with that comma? What is that? All right, common danger signs for adults and children. Headaches, weakness, and vomiting are some major danger signs. Comma. That's a danger sign there. Okay. There is inconsistency here between the font sizes. Consistency is key. Okay. The best thing you do if you have been diagnosed with a concussion is to, all right, I kind of, again, use of space it's not that great, but I do like this suspense builder, right? So what is it? Right? He will pull up the slide and then we're all like, what is it? And he says, oh, wait for it. Okay, sure, whatever. I don't know if we need to wait for it. Rest, okay? So he tells us that, yeah, that's simply what you do for a concussion is you have to go into a dark room and sit there for days without the lights on, without a device, right? This isn't bad. Rest is key to healing process. Rest is key to the healing process of your brain. Stay away from all lightings, and try to stay in quiet, dark rooms. Okay? Yeah. A little cute illustration. And then he used this last slide to talk about this guy who the movie Concussion is based on, right? Starring Will Smith. That's Will Smith, right? The DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Okay, so the doctor, I don't understand the capitalization of the DR, right? And, you just give us a source here. I don't know why the bullet, and that's his slideshow. And that's, for the most part, what not to do. Although, it's something, right? There are some mistakes. It will work for the most part, but it could be a lot tighter, a lot more professional, a lot more consistent. We will now, in a moment, take a look at another slideshow. Okay, so here's another one from a past student. It's in the editor view here. Let's look at the present. All right, and as we can see, it says the history of Marvel Comics, the 60s and 70s. Now, I'm going to show you something. First of all, let's just take a quick look at how clean it is. It's not, we don't have these, these colors, these distracting colors that are bouncing out at us, popping out at us. And it's not too visual yet. It's going to be, but it's very professional and very clean, and I like that. And even the little details make a difference to me. Notice this right here where it says the 60s, okay? When I would say 75% of students, when they write 60s or 70s like that, they have an apostrophe there. And this young lady, Amanda, knew that no apostrophe goes there when you write the words, when you write 60s or 70s like that. Yay, that's great. Okay, so the history of comics. The 60s and 70s, the history of Marvel Comics. Now, in particular, this young lady was giving a speech on minorities in Marvel Comics. Minority women also, with a focus on minority women. So it was great. It was a great speech. The PowerPoint, the slideshow was fantastic, and she considered her audience, she considered relevancy, right? It was all there. Marvel when she made this, it was coming out as one of the best top grossing movies, franchises so far, right? This was a few years ago, and not only that, she considered her audience and what they might be interested in. So, okay, now over here, this is a blank slide, and she actually had a video embedded there. And here's what I mean. She was using this video as her grabber. And this is what I mean by undermining your grabber. We saw this first. When she shouldn't have said anything, she should have just played the video that was embedded in this slideshow. So in a way, she kind of ruined the surprise. So she should have had this slide first. All right, let's keep going. She says, a reflection of history. Now, is this too much text? Potentially, but it's still very easy on the eyes. It's very clean, and we've got the visual elements there too. It just looks very neat, right? So Marvel Comics often makes characters based off what's going on in society, okay? It's my understanding that Marvel just recently created non-binary superheroes. I read about that a couple of days ago. The emergence of black characters occurred during the civil rights movement, all right? And prior to the movement, characters were predominantly white male. So, right? Looks nice. It does. I don't see any grammar issues, capitalization issues, nothing like that. Reflection of histories, continued. Independent women and people of color were introduced around the same time, all right? Same time as what? Civil rights, okay? And they used as a statement that people are people. Hopefully she would explain that, right, a little bit more, but, it's accepting the actual people in our world as people and representing them. Okay, the Black Panther. She starts talking about the Black Panther first. This was actually before the movie came out, so it was fantastic that, I think the movie came out a year or two later after this. She had a clip from a Black Panther cartoon. I wonder can I play it? Oh, no. Okay. And it was, like maybe a 15-second video that was embedded in here. And it was fantastic. So it was from BT cartoon. And she says that the Black Panther was the first black male character. Again, notice less is more here, right? She had her little video, but everything here is nice and clean and simple, easy on the eyes. Okay, then she shows us one of the first issues where the Black Panther appears, okay, born in Wakanda, Africa, and he was a leader of the Panther Clan in 1966 in Fantastic Four Volume 1. So he didn't have his own comic. He first showed up in the Fantastic Four. T'Challa, I think he might have even been bad at that point, or maybe they were fighting him. I don't know. I'd have to go back into my Marvel comic history. I don't like the Fantastic Four that much anyway. All right. Look at how visually appealing this is, right? She's finding images that we want to look at, and then the text is there, and she gives us the powers, right? And she talks about how he appeared in the Fantastic Four comics, right? A little bit more, just visuals of the Black Panther. This is when he got his own comic. There we go. Okay, then she moves on to Misty Knight. which I believe is a character in the Netflix series of Luke Cage, right? She talks about her, she's got her cyborg robot arm. First female black character, okay? Misty Knight, she was a cop, I believe. She got injured, and then I think it was Stark who gave her the arm, right? Okay, so birthplace unknown, first seen in Marvel team up. Good, we're getting the history. Okay, she's got a cybernetic arm. Although she doesn't have super strength. Well, she has the arm has super strength, but that doesn't mean she has super strength, right? So she can punch through the wall, but she can't lift a car because that I'm into this stuff, as you could see. All right, she was portrayed as a villain with a New York City-based team created by Misty herself. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Here, we could even read the comic a little bit. I don't know about that. No one from the back is going to be able to read it. What's happening here? Okay, and then she moves on to Storm, right? King and Queen of Wakanda. Storm, the second black female in Marvel. She gained more fame and overshadowed Misty. She even became an X-Men, if I have my Marvel stuff correct, right? And then she gives us this last slide. Now, let me explain a little bit about this last slide, because I would say that in general there is too much text here, but listen to what Amanda did. She actually stopped and she said, hold on, let me explain this. So as I've been saying, that if there's too much text, the audience might not even bother reading it. But what Amanda did was very clever at this part, because it was her clincher, the conclusion here. And she wanted this. She wanted to draw attention to this quote here. So she finished her speech, right? 95% finished. And then she said, at one point, she said, but before I close, I would just like to read to you one quote by Alex Alonso, who is a Marvel comic book creator. And then she said, if you could direct your attention to the whiteboard as I read it aloud to you. Now that works, right? So now we are going through each word with the person as she's reading it out loud. We're taking those words in. She's probably reading it even a little bit slower, making it sound like it's a conclusion. Let me try that, all right? So it says here, I don't know if you could see it. Sorry. If I tried reading it on the screen here, it would be backwards for me, so I'm just, okay. This is modern mythology, and we are the latest caretakers, the comic book creators. Marvel is all about racial diversity, and you could see it from T'Challa to Shang-Chi to Storm to Miles Morales to Kamala Khan. But there's always room for improvement, and we will improve. Right? That works. It's a very inclusive type of ending. So I hope those examples help illustrate kind of the do's and don'ts of creating slideshows. Now, you also have to consider, how many slides am I going to have? On average, I would say a given speech of this length has about 8 slides, maybe 10, right? It depends on the speech. You're going to have slides for your main points, but, are you going to have slides for your sub-main points? Or your sub-main points? Probably not, right? Sometimes your main point you could have the sub-points just as bullets for that. Again, making sure that you don't have too many words for each bullet. A phrase, maybe a handful of words. You want to keep that in mind. You definitely want to have slides that have images built in. Sometimes it's good enough to just have no words on a slide and to just let it be an image so that you could interact with it, so that you could use it as an opportunity to illustrate, to show your audience what it is exactly you're talking about. So keep that in mind. As far as slides for how-tos, right? You might want to have steps, a slide for each step. Or you can have a slide that has a bunch of steps built into it. Maybe the first steps, maybe the middle steps for another slide, maybe the last few steps for the last slide. It's really up to you, it is. So, but you have to decide what works best for you. And you want to consider primarily what is going to just make things as digestible, as understandable as possible for my audience so that they could retain this information, so that they could feel informed by the time I'm done with my speech, by the time you're done with your speech. Now let me talk a little bit really quickly, or as quickly as possible, about videos for your slideshow. As I said before, right, we live in an age where a lot of the time, when I want to learn something, I sometimes skip Googling the Googling step and I go straight to YouTube. So why wouldn't we take advantage of the fact that there's this amazing resource out there that will show us, that has videos dedicated to showing us how to do things, right? Use that if it's helpful. You might use it for yourself, for your own speech, and then you might have somebody who shows you how to do something, and then you decide, okay, I'm going to show the class how to do it just like he showed me how to do it, and I'll cite my source, right? Or you could show some of the video clip. It doesn't matter. But as far as slideshows, videos go, embedding the videos into your slideshow, just a couple of things to keep in mind. When you embed a video into your slideshow, that increases the file size significantly. I have had times where students have wanted to pull up their slideshow really quick while they're setting up. We're waiting for them to give the speech, but because the file size is so large and they're downloading it onto the computer or onto my account, we're waiting, and it's just because they have this large video embedded. So what are some ways around that? Well, one way is just to have multiple windows open when you are presenting, and one of those windows is just simply the YouTube page, and you know exactly where the video begins, right? Okay, I need to start this video clip at 3 minutes and 33 seconds, all right, and end it at 3 minutes and 52 seconds, boom, and you know when to press play and when to press stop. So that's a workaround, that could work too. You kind of have to figure that out on your own and what works best for you, what you are most comfortable with, right? Me, I just go to YouTube and I press play and then I press stop. That's all. So I think this video lesson is going to be coming to a close soon. It's a rainy day. Andre, please stop dancing behind the tripod. I'll put the video on you. But I have a few more things to say before we conclude. And first of all, I hope that this was helpful. Today we went over as far as slideshows, do's and don'ts. Dre? Shh. We went over slideshow do's and don'ts, just basic guidelines and elements of a slideshow. We talked about not undermining your grabber through your slideshow. I showed you some examples of not so good slideshows and pretty good slideshows. So I hope that was helpful to you. Remember, the ultimate goal is the slideshow is to supplement informing your audience. It shouldn't be the star, and it shouldn't be a distraction. And it shouldn't be something that gives us difficulty in getting the info that you want us to get from it. Consider font size, consider contrasting colors, all of these things you want to keep in mind. I wish there were a way that you could project this somehow on a large screen and that you could take 10, 15, 20 steps back to see if you could see it. If we were in class, I'd say, before you give your speech, you could come to my class after school and just see what your slideshow looks like. See if the video embedded works, right? But we don't have that opportunity, so we're making the best of what we have. All right, so now you know how to outline. Now you know what I'm looking for when it comes to a slideshow. So let's go. Get on it. I think that it's time for me to set a due date for the outline. Let's make that due, since you should have been working on it over the weekend, let's make it due by tomorrow night. You want to submit that through Google Classroom. And you also want to be working on your slideshow. You should be working on that also, maybe simultaneously or right after, right? These are things that you want to have ready to go. You never know. When it comes to choosing an order, I might choose you to go on the first day. So you want to be ready. You want to anticipate that that's going to happen. So before I sign off here, I just want to say what I've been saying. I hope that you're staying safe. I hope that you're staying socially distant. I hope that you're staying healthy. I hope that you are staying home. I hope that you're avoiding all public places and all gatherings. And I mean all gatherings. A lot of people, I think, at this point think it's okay, you know, if we go over to a friend's house or go over to a family member's house or have family members come over to our house. But I'd be really careful with that too. You have to keep in mind that the way this virus spreads is people who are asymptomatic, they are sometimes, at least according to what the science I've been listening to, they are sometimes more contagious even though they show no symptoms. And yeah, sure, your uncle or your friend might not look like they have any illness whatsoever, and they might not feel like they have any illness whatsoever. But if they were at the supermarket 3 days ago, you don't know. You don't know. So the very best thing to do right now is to assume that you could spread it to someone and assume that anybody could spread it to you. Keep track of your loved ones and make sure that they're all staying home. Okay? We're going to get through this, and you're going to get working on your PowerPoint, slideshow, Prezi, whatever you want to call it. You're going to work on that outline. I want the outlines by, what is it, tomorrow. Today's Monday, so Tuesday night, I don't know, what, 8 p.m.? We'll see. I'm going to attach a few documents to my Google Classroom. I think that's about it. All right, if you have any questions, you know, you can contact me. Shoot me a message through Remind. Hope you're doing well. Miss you all.